Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor. Thank you for joining our channel. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss anything that we post or anytime we go live. You can also find a lot of links that we have at the link that is moving about at the bottom of the screen, which is beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. We're going to go over a few links that you can find there. First up is the link in the description highlight of the week, which is a link that you will find from beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. There's a tab there that says Dreams to Keys Realty Merch. If you click that tab and you're ordering any merchandise that we sell from our store, then you will automatically get 40% off from now through the 10th of September, of course, 2025. So all products are on 40% off automatically. You do not need a discount code, but the last day to make your purchase for that discount is September 10th, of course, of 2025. We do have shirts, hoodies, journals. So if you're interested in any of that, please make sure that you go and make your purchase right now. Now we also have another link that is our newest link to this website, which is crownfirstlady.net. That is a separate business that I started where I sell a hair oil or scalp oil that I've been using on myself. And I've appreciated seeing that so many of you have made purchases of this scalp oil in either the 1 or 4 ounce bottles that we provide as purchase options. You can get 40% off automatically again on all products on crownfirstlady.net from today through the 10th, again, of September 10th, 2025. You can go to the website and make those purchases today. So we're going to start off with why we're all here. So I just finished a live on Gwinnett County looking at market data for a specific zip code. We're going to look at Dekalb County looking at market data for a specific zip code. And so I want to share my screen. I'm going to use my avatar while I do that. And we're going to get into market data. All right. So it looks like everyone can see my screen. If you have followed this channel before, you know that we use FastStats, which is complements of the first multiple listing service, or FMLS. I have access to that because I am a licensed real estate agent and realtor in the state of Georgia. Today, we will be looking at the zip code of 30084, which is a zip code that we have looked at previously. It includes Tucker in Dekalb County. If you are familiar with me, you know that I'm covering Gwinnett and Dekalb counties as my market areas. So we always start from the top down. We review residential detached and residential attached with the same metrics for month-to-month comparisons as well as year-to-date. We'll finish off the data by looking at the graphs that were provided by the FMLS here from FastStats, and then we'll always leave time for questions. So if you at any point have any questions, please put your questions, comments into the comment section, and I'll answer them as we go throughout the live. If you have a more confidential question or something that's more personal to you that you'd like to ask, I would recommend that you schedule a consultation with me using the link moving about at the bottom of the screen. From that link, you'll see a tab that says Let's Talk. Use that tab to schedule your consultation with me for up to 1 hour. If you do not attend the consultation as you scheduled, please reschedule it at a time when you're available so that you do not incur the $15 no-show fee. So let's start from the top. With residential detached, this refers to properties that, as the name suggests, are not connected to one another. The first key metric here is new listings. For July 2024, it was 42. For July 2025, it was 50, showing an increase of 19% as we move to July 2025. So we do see that we have slightly more new listings, specifically 8. For pending sales for July 2024, we saw 24 for July 2024, and for July 2025, it was 35. This shows an increase in percentage of about 46%. Pending sales are those sales that have not closed, but there was an executed contract. For closed sales for July 2024, it was 24 and 31 for July 2025, showing an increase of 29.2% for closed sales. So with all of these metrics, we see we have more new listings, more pending sales, and more closed sales. Are they statistically significant? I would say, especially the pending sales, we're reaching close to 50%. We could definitely say that that is showing some significance there. But the numbers outside of that, they could arguably be saying, it could be argued that they're not as significant in the market as far as the effect on the market as they may show in statistics. Let's look at what June was suggesting at the time in 2025. For June, the new listings were 46, pending sales were 26, and closed sales were 35. So June, we had a little bit less new listings, and our pending sales were less, and our closed sales were slightly more. There were 4 more closed sales in June. So overall, there's not much difference going on between June and July of 2025. And I would say that number-wise, it's not as significant for July 2024 and 2025. However, the theme is we're seeing more new listings, more pending sales, and more closed sales over time. Days on market until sale, which again is like cumulative days on market. It is not reflecting when the property was with a specific real estate agent or brokerage. It's really reflecting the time in which that specific property has been on the market, regardless of who it's been on the market under. So for July 2024, days on market until sale was 22. For July 2025, days on market until sale was 27, showing an increase of about 23%. The days on market until sale is not a metric that you typically want to see increasing unless maybe you're the buyer. That may give you more time to make your decision or get your financing together. For sellers, the sooner the better is a theory of an overall approach for sellers. However, there are some sellers that have more patience and are willing to make sure that the buyer has enough time they need. However, as we know, both sides have their preferences, have their individual situations they have to consider first. So a seller may need to close a home in a certain time frame so they can move into their next home or whatever the case may be. So everyone has their own motivations, their own considerations on their end. And it's the theory that once they reach the executed contract that they agree on a middle point where they both can make sense of it to make a deal. As you see, the days on market kind of decrease under 30 days. It can feel more like a seller's market. You can see more investors sometimes in the market when those days on market until sale are much shorter than 30 days. And when those days on market until sale are much longer than 30 days, it can feel more like a buyer's market where the buyer, like I said, has more time to make those decisions and shop around more. Here, we're not even at the 30-day mark, but we are seeing an increase in days on market until sale. And this could be more of neutral ground. So we'll continue to look at this market and see where it trends. And we'll see if this days on market until sale continues to increase and if this becomes more and more like a buyer's market. One thing to think about for the month of July in particular in this area or in the state of Georgia as a whole, July tends to be the last month before children go back to school. So July potentially is that last time frame before the parents of a family decide, we really need to be situated before, children go back to school. So we need to make sure that we have them in the school that we want them in, or that, we have all those arrangements for school already in place. So July is like that last hurrah in theory. So that could be another reason why certain numbers can look as they do. But we'll continue. Like I said, we can look again at this zip code next month or for the month of August to just see what played out for August for this zip code as well. Let's look at the days on market until sale back in June 2025. It was 24. So we've increased by 3 days going into July. Median sales price. This is one of the metrics that has an asterisk, meaning that there are some things that could not be considered here, such as down payment assistance and seller concessions. For July 2024, the average sales price was $465,000. For July 2025, it was $455,000, showing a decrease of 2.2%, which is equating to about $10,000. Median sales price is the middle point. Median means middle. So if you line up all the sales prices from least to greatest, the one in the middle is the median. Now, looking here, we're seeing that the sales price for this category, median sales price, is decreasing, and it has decreased by $10,000 based on what we see here. Now, let's look at the average sales price. Again, this metric has an asterisk, meaning that there's some things we can't consider for this metric. For average sales price for July 2024, it was $508,618. For July 2025, it was $474,552, showing a decrease of about 7%. So average means that you have all the sales prices and divide them by the number of sales prices that there were. So if there were 14 homes that were for sale, or in this case, let's take the actual numbers. For 24 closed sales in July 2024, and you add up all the sales prices and divide it by 24. For July 2025, you had 31 closings. You take all those sales prices and divide it by 31, and then you get that average sales price. So here we see that, again, we're seeing a decrease, and it's more significant as far as monetary value, not necessarily in statistical percentage, but the median and average sales prices have decreased for both comparisons. Now let's look at the percent of list price received. For July 2024, it was 99.7%. For July 2025, it was 97.2%, showing a decrease of 2.5%. Both values are still close to 100%. Of course, the July 2024 value is closer, very much closer. And in theory, we want these numbers to be as close to 100% as possible, because that gives us the indication that properties are being listed appropriately and being sold at their appropriate list price. So when we see some decreases from that, that could indicate that there could have been some things that we can't really assess with this metric, because again, this metric also has an asterisk next to it. So we can't assess for any seller's concessions or down payment assistance. So there could be some factors relating here to why that percentage has decreased. But we also know we have more closings in this column than we did in 2024. So there could be some things there that were arranged that just didn't align with the percent of list price received being closer to 100%. Now let's look at June. I just want to see what June was showing for median sales price, average sales price, and percent of list price received. For June 2025, the median sales price was $449,950, which is less than what we see now for July 2025. For the average sales price for June 2025, it was $485,181, which is more than we see now for July 2025. So that median sales price was lower in June 2025, but the average sales price was higher in June 2025. The percent of list price received was 98.6% in June 2025. So we have dropped just a bit coming here to July 2025. Now let's look at inventory of homes for sale. For July 2024, it was 71. For July 2025, it was 72, showing a 1.4% increase, only a difference of one home. So not much to say there. For month supply of inventory for July 2024, it was 2.6 and 2.5 for July 2025, showing a decrease of 3.8%. Not much difference there either for month supply of inventory. And again, month supply of inventory is saying that when we look at all the homes on the market at this time, with nothing else being added, how many months will it take for this amount of inventory to sell based on the current market status? And at the time of July 2024, it would have taken 2.6 months. At the time of July 2025, it would have taken 2.5 months. Not much difference there at all. For June, we had 78 homes for sale for June 2025, and 2.8 was the month supply of inventory at that time. So we had more homes on the market at that time, and it would have taken slightly longer to sell those homes. Now, if you have any questions while I'm going through this, please make sure that you put those in the chat. One of the things that I want to go back to that was mentioned in the last month's data review that we talked about, that I briefly mentioned in the Gwinnett market data that I discussed earlier today, was percent of list price received was asked in a previous live. What does that mean? And what does that relate to? And originally, I thought it was about the original list price. So after receiving that question from that video, I went to the FMLS and FastStats to get further clarification on what that metric actually was meaning. And the feedback that I received is it's not the original necessarily, it is the last listing price that was posted or documented for that home is where they're pulling from to say the list price and the sales price and what the percentage difference would be. So hopefully that answers anyone else's question. And I forget the gentleman that asked that question in that live, but that is the answer to that. It is not necessarily the original list price. It is the last list price that was documented for that home, or the last list price listed for that home. All right, so year-to-date data for new listings through July 2024 was 297. Through July 2025, it was 315, which showed an increase of 6.1%. For pending sales we see through July 2024, it was 200. Through July 2025, it was 216 pending sales, which showed an increase of 8%. For closed sales through July 2024, it was 191. Through July 2025, it was 205, showing an increase of 7.3%. So just like for the month-to-month comparisons, the year-to-date comparisons are showing increases for new listings, pending sales, and closed sales year-to-date. So we are seeing more this year than we did in 2024 year-to-date for all of these metrics. Now, days on market until sale through July 2024 was 22, same as the month of July when we looked at that one. And then for year-to-date through July 2025 was 30, showing an increase of 36.4%. So right at the 30-day mark when we look at year-to-date data through July 2025. That would make it more of a neutral type of situation in the market. Now, let's look at the median sales price. Again, there are asterisks for this metric across the board. Year-to-date through July 2024 was $460,000. Through July 2025 was $435,000, showing a decrease of 5.4%. So we are seeing the median sales price is even lower. So it was lower when we looked at July. I'm sorry, when we looked at June, it was lower than July. Year-to-date, we're seeing it lower than what we saw for July. Hopefully that makes sense. So the median sales price, again, is the middle point of all the sales prices. So at this particular point in time, the median sales price it's lower than it was last year by about almost $25,000. So that could be worth looking into if you're someone who is looking to buy a property and you're trying to, quote unquote, make sure that you get the most home for its value. That could be a sign that something's going on in this market to where you potentially might get more for the value there. I don't know what's making that decrease, but that could be something to look into if this is a market area you're interested in. Again, that's the middle point. So there are homes above and below this sales price value. Average sales price through July 2024 was $498,200. Through July 2025 was $469,677, showing a decrease of 5.7%. For average, again, it's taking all of those homes sales prices and dividing it by the number of prices that there were, or properties that there were for this matter. So it would be taking all of the sales prices, dividing it by the 191 for 2024 at that point, or the 205 at the point of July 2025. And we are seeing that, again, the average sales price is decreasing. Again, we have that metric. We have this metric, which has an asterisk that tells us there are certain things that are missing here or could not be included here, such as down payment assistance or seller concessions. But nonetheless, we see that the median and average sales prices have decreased this year as in comparison to last year. Percent of list price received through July 2024 was 99.5%. Through July 2025, 98.6%, which is a decrease of 0.9%. That is not statistically significant. Both values are still quite close to 100%. When we look at the year-to-date data, we see that that percentage is higher than the percentage we saw for the month of July. So there's not much to take away here. And again, this metric also has the asterisk, which means there are certain considerations we can include. So I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions. I don't see any, but if you do have any questions or comments that could relate to the market data that we're reviewing, please make sure you put them in the comment section. Even if you're watching on the replay at a later date, feel free to put your comment or question in the comment section. If it's something more confidential, I would recommend that you use the link floating about at the bottom of the screen, which is beacons.ai/Jalon Strong, to make sure that you schedule a consultation with me. If there's a more private matter that you would like to discuss relative to your home ownership journey, then feel free to schedule your consultation with me for up to 1 hour, and we can discuss whatever that matter is. And that way you can keep that confidential matter confidential. And also, if you are scheduling a consultation, please make sure that you attend the consultation. It is via Zoom. Make sure you attend it at the scheduled time so that you don't incur a $15 no-show fee, which is non-refundable. All right, let's move on to residential attached, same metrics. For July 2024, new listings, it was 12. And for July 2025, the new listings were 26. That showed a percent increase of 116.7%. So about double the new listings showed up here in 2025 than were present last year. Again, what we've noticed when we look at residential attached across the board for my market areas is that those numbers are often much smaller than the residential detached numbers. So we would likely see higher percentages with smaller changes. Percent pending sales for July 2024 was 11, and the same for July 2025, so there was no change there. Closed sales for July 2024 was 10, and it was 7 for July 2025, showing a decrease of 30%. Again, any small difference with smaller numbers shows a greater percent change. So what we've seen thus far is that we have more new listings, no change in pending sales, and a decrease in closed sales. Let's look at June and see what was different from there. The new listings of June 2025 was 23, 13 pending sales, and 15 closed sales. So we have more new listings from June, less pending sales from June, and less closed sales from June. Now, days on market until sale for July 2024 was 47, and for July 2025 was 38, showing a decrease of 19.1%. Again, days on market until sale is typically not where you want to see the numbers increase, unless you're a buyer who wants more time or needs more time for financing or any other reason. But a seller typically does not look to have their home or property on the market for any longer than necessary. So starting with 47 in July of 2024 is a very lengthy time, longer than expected, I would say. But we are talking about residential attached. And again, in the market areas that I serve, I see that residential attached properties are not as desired by buyers as much as residential detached properties are. So does that surprise me? Not at all. For July 2025, that number getting closer to 30 is better, or could seem to appear to be better to be a more neutral market, but it still does give buyers a bit more time to get their financing in order or any other priorities they may have. So it's not a terrible time frame, 38 days, but it is past the 30-day mark, which can kind of be like that soft spot for both buyers and sellers. And once you get, like I said before, once you get under the 30 days, you can see different types of buyers kind of having their way in the market a little bit more. You see more investors sometimes when the days on market until sale is less than 30 days. Let's look at what it was in June of 2025. It was 35 days until sale, so we have increased by 3 days. Now, median sales price. For July 2024, it was $228,750. For July 2025, it was $249,900, showing an increase of 9.2%. The median sales price is increasing, but the numbers are still quite small. There are not a lot of areas that may still be showing median or even average sales prices less than $300,000. So residential attached properties may be where you are seeing that more so in the market areas that I service. But to see anything lower than $300,000 in Dekalb or Gwinnett County and it be a residential detached could be quite rare nowadays. But residential attached, here we're seeing that you can still see that. And again, median and sales prices have an asterisk next to them. So there are some things that we can't consider in reviewing of these metrics. However, we're seeing that the numbers are increasing. So for the median sales price, we're getting quite close to $250,000. And for the average sales price, we're getting closer to the $300,000 mark. Percent of list price received was 99.3% in July 2024 and 99.6% in July 2025, which shows an increase of 0.3%, which is not statistically significant, and both numbers are close to 100%, with the latter being closest. So we're on good standing there with our theory of the list price and the sales price being closest to each other. Now let's look at June to see what those numbers were. For June 2025, the median sales price was $399,810. So very much higher than it is now. Average sales price was $381,615, very much higher than it was now, or as of July 2025, and percent of list price received was 99.4%, which is a little less than the percentage that we are currently looking at reviewing July 2025. So we're looking at about $100,000 difference in median and average sales price from June to July of 2025. So that is where I would say there's not only statistical significance, but a difference being felt in the market that's quite significant. So this could be an indicator if you are looking to purchase a residential attached property in this market. With the pricing that we're seeing with such a drop, I don't think in any other market review that I've done that I've seen such a drop in median and average sales price. This could be an indicator if you're a buyer and you have been conditioned in your mind that you have been priced out of this market and all of these things are outside of your reach, or all of these properties that you're interested in are outside of your reach. A $100,000 difference or drop in median and average sales price would probably energize you to look at that market again. So if you're not already working with a real estate agent and you're interested in this market, you definitely want to schedule a consultation with me so we can get you on track so that you can get into seeing if you're ready to buy a home in this market. Because I don't know what other indicator you're going to get if you see a decrease of that magnitude in a market area, if you're interested in that market area. So let's look back at inventory of homes for sale. For July 2024, it was 16. For July 2025, it was 67. That's a great difference, showing an increase of 318.8% increase. 4-month supply of inventory for July 2024, it was 1.6. For July 2025, it was 6.6, showing an increase of 312.5%. This is saying that our inventory has grown so much that where it used to take us 2 months to sell all the inventory, it would now take us 7 months to sell out the inventory on the market, which means we have quite a bit of inventory. And again, for residential attached properties in the market areas that I service, such as this one, typically buyers are looking more so for residential detached properties. Not to say that a buyer won't purchase a residential attached, but the numbers are quite small. You don't even see the same type of numbers on new listings or inventory. But here we're seeing growing inventory. We're seeing price drops just month to month. And excuse me. And we're seeing that it's looking more and more feasible for someone to purchase a property in this area for either or residential attached or residential detached. Of course, it's more affordable for you to have residential attached based on sales price alone, based on what we're looking at for sales price alone. Of course, there are other factors that you have to consider when you're buying that may make this residential attached property not as advantageous depending on what you're looking for. But just looking at the sales prices alone, both the median and average here, dropping by about $100,000, yeah, that would probably wake up anybody to say, yes, let me look at this market. So if that's something that has been a deterrent for you, let's say you are trying not to purchase a property over $300,000, you may want to look at this market sooner than later with your real estate agent guiding you along. And if you're interested in this market, this is a market that I service. So if you have any questions as we're going along, please put them in the comment section and I'll answer them while we're here on live, or if you're going to place them at a later date, maybe while you're watching the replay, I can respond to you at that time as well. Let's wrap it up with the year-to-date data before we get into the graphs briefly. Through July 2024, the new listings were 82. Through July 2025, it was 172, showing an increase of 109.8%. So there were definitely more new listings. For year-to-date pending sales through July 2025, it was 69. Through July 2024, it was 69. Through July 2025, it was 88, showing an increase of 27.5%. For closed sales through July 2024, it was 68. Through July 2025, it was 22.1%. So here we're seeing that we have more new listings, more pending sales, and more closed sales year to date than we did last year as of July. Whereas when we looked at just the July months, we saw an increase for new listings and a decrease for closed sales, no change on pending sales. So looking at year-to-date data is where you can kind of see more of where things are going overall, because month to month can appear to skew. You know, you can't just look at 1 month and really compare things evenly. All right, days on market until sale through July 2024 was 37. Through July 2025 was 45, showing an increase of 21.6%. So we are seeing an opposite effect going on here. When we looked at the months of July, we saw the days on market until sale were decreasing. When we look at year to date, we see the days on market until sale are increasing, almost in similar fashions. So what does that say? That's something that is fluctuating and also may likely increase again. It's increasing throughout the year. So year to date, it is still rising. So that could be something if you're a seller in this market, or if you're a buyer in this market and you know that the property that you're buying is not your forever home. Are you ready to spend a longer time with the property on market when you are ready to sell? Because this could be an indicator of what the market could look like at the time that you're ready to sell. And no one would know until you know that you're ready to sell, and then data could be reviewed at that time. But if you are buying a property and you know that you don't want to live in it forever, then it's also a good time for you to put on a seller hat and just think, what would it take for me to sell this property? How much time would I need? how much financial footing would I need to be prepared to sell this home at that point? And so you can start planning ahead and putting yourself in that position. Median sales price through July 2024 was $255,000. Through July 2025 was $280,000. This shows an increase of about 10%. The numbers are still under $300,000, but the median sales price is much higher. And of course, we have higher numbers. So we're looking at closed sales of 83 compared to the 7 where we were looking at the month of July versus the year through July 2025. Average sales price through July 2024 was $286,714. Through July 2025 was $299,923, showing an increase of 4.6%. Again, the numbers are increasing, but the average sales price is quite close to what it was looking at the months of July. Percent of list price received through July 2024 was 99.4%. Through July 2025 was 98.2%, showing a decrease of 1.2%. And these numbers are still quite close to 100%, though we see a drop more so for the July 2025 metric being underneath 99. But again, we do have more closings to take into consideration with the 83 versus the 7. So the last part we'll do is review these graphs, which are complements again of FastStats through the FMLS. These graphs are showing us the median sales price. On the left, we see the median sales price with a rolling 12-month calculation for residential detached. On the right, we see the median sales price for residential attached, also with a 12-month rolling calculation. The gray lines on both graphs represent the All MLS, which is the first multiple listing service or FMLS. The green lines represent the zip code we have been reviewing through this live, which is 3084, which includes Tucker of Dekalb County. What you can see is that it's carrying us through January 2014 through the present data that we have reviewed. It's also showing us median sales price ranges on the y-axis. What you'll see on the graph on the left, which again is the median sales price residential detached graph, is that the green line and the gray line start together back in the 2014, 2015, 2016 point. About early into 2016, you start to see that the zip code here, 30084, starts to make a separation from the All MLS line. And the separation gets a bit more distinct at about 2018. You see more of a division where the green line is above the All MLS gray line, and it has surpassed the $250,000 mark for median sales price. Once you get to about the pandemic, you see that that line comes together slightly, and it comes together even more by 2021. But the green line representing this zip code is still above the All MLS. Then they start to take a similar movement or pattern, but again, keeping the green line above the All MLS. Toward the end of this graph, you'll see that about midpoint of 2023, both lines take a slight dip, and the green line, which represents 30084, takes some inclines in a bumpy fashion, but still creates more division between itself and the All MLS data, ending the graph just under the $450,000 mark, where the All MLS line ends under the $400,000 mark. Looking at the graph to the right, same type of year, time frame, and price point, though the median sales price is lower at the end of the graph than we'll see for the residential detached, again, reflecting what this market typically looks for. And so We see that these lines never touch, and the opposite is true, that the green line stays underneath the all MLS line. So again, indicating that this market does not typically have buyers that are wanting residential attached properties. And so we never see the lines touch. The all MLS line does kind of a diagonal incline over time, and it ends the graph in between, almost at the midpoint, but slightly below the midpoint of 350,000. Whereas the green line takes several bumps along the road, but does incline over time and ends the graph under the $300,000 mark. So I'm going to stop sharing. So hopefully my description of the market data made sense to everyone. Hopefully you could follow along. Hopefully everything, you know, I was able to put everything in its proper place for you to understand the metrics. And if you reviewed previous lives with me or market data with me, some of that information may not be surprising. I think the most surprising thing that we found with this market data was the difference between June and July for residential attached median and average sales prices dropped by about $100,000. So that is the most notable thing that I've taken from this particular review. And that has been the biggest difference I think I've seen comparing data thus far on this channel for any of the market areas that I reviewed. That's a big difference. That's a big change. And like I said, the market areas that I service typically are looking for residential detached properties. So we often see smaller numbers and, of course, smaller sales prices and list prices for residential attached properties. So that's something to consider, of course, if you need something more specific or you need specific advice for your scenario in your home ownership journey. You definitely want to schedule a consultation with me so that we can talk one-on-one for up to 1 hour about your scenario and your goals of home ownership. So you can use the link that's moving about at the bottom of your screen. It says beacons.ai/Shalon Strong. You go to that link. There's a tab that says Let's Talk. You click it, find a time that works for you, and schedule it so that you can make sure that you have a scheduled window of time where we both are expected to be there in our virtual meeting space. And make sure if you schedule a time that you attend that time or reschedule so that you do not incur the $15 no-show fee, which is non-refundable. I want to make sure that we make the most time of our time so that those that are available have the window of times available on the scheduling platform to schedule time with me. And if you're not available, that time is free for others. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I don't see any questions, but if you have any, feel free to put them in the description box. Of course, you can watch this on the replay, put your questions or comments in later, and also feel free to schedule that consultation if you want to discuss something more privately regarding your home ownership journey. Do not forget, you can go to our website, dckrealty.com, or the link moving about at the bottom of the screen and purchase your merch. We have shirts, hoodies, journals, you name it, we have it on our website. And you can get a 40% automatic discount on all products through September 10th of 2025. You do not need a code because it is an automatic discount. So you just make your purchases as you see fit and it will make the discount for you. Also, same thing with crownfirstlady.net. If you're interested in any of the scalp oils from our site, then make sure you go there, make your purchases as normal, and it will deduct 40% automatically on all products through September 10th of this year, of course, 2025. So I will see you all in the next video. Hopefully you take advantage of those discounts. And I hope you all are taking care of yourselves, enjoyed your holiday weekend and Monday, and I will see you in the next live. Thank you for joining Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor, and Dreams to Keys Realty is where your dreams turn into keys. I will see you in the next one.